Okay. We had, not this past week, I guess it was a week ago already. My mother-in-law passed away. And it did kind of make us all, we did a lot of reflecting. All the kids were home, and we talked about a lot of history and a lot of old times. Our sons, 3 of the sons stood up during the funeral and took like 10 minutes telling all about the, good memories. And
throwing each other under the bus.
Yeah, they threw each other under the bus. It was a lot of fun. And, but it brings life into perspective. A lot of times a funeral does that and gives us a time of introspection as well. We think of all those things that are important in our lives. One of my daughters came to visit the other day, and she sat down here in the office, and she said, Grandma's funeral made me think a lot. And I thought, that's cool, I think. I mean, it does. It just makes you think, she goes, the way she lived her life, how she was very faithful, and how she always accepted everybody. And she left a wonderful legacy. And we wonder, what will our legacy be like at the end of our lives? What will people say about us? Will we leave a good, at Dorothy Jean's funeral, we heard about her faithfulness, her industriousness. She worked all the time, and her love of God and a family. It made me think about how I spend my life. Am I making an impact? Will my life really count for anything? Grandma made a difference, and she was ready to go to heaven. I mean, we had a lot of fun with her that last week. She had no fear of the future. She had a strong faith in her Savior. I look forward to that day when we too will be reunited with her and the other saints that went on before us. So I become reflective not only for what's important in my life, but what's in the life of our church. Gary and I have been called to serve here, and as we reflect back, have we made a difference? Is South Troy making a difference in our community? I look out today with mixed emotion. The greatest emotion I have is love for this family, the South Troy family. We love each other. We encourage each other. We have a wonderful group of people coming here to South Troy. There are people here today that pray for each other. We have some ladies that meet Sunday mornings and pray before church. We have others that pray during the week. We have a wonderful group of people attending that encourage each other. There are people here today that love to give and to serve with their time and their talents and their finances. Everybody pitches in. We're a family of believers, and for that I'm grateful. I am so thankful and humbled for all those that have made a commitment to give to the ministry here at South Troy. Without your faithfulness, we wouldn't be able to meet on Sunday mornings in pretty relative comfort, and to get together and to teach and support our children and teens on Wednesday nights, or operate a food shelf, or serve the schools through the PEM backpack program. We wouldn't be helping people get right with God and find that that God has a plan for their lives. We wouldn't be able to help the single moms that have been coming, to help them get on their feet. One of our single moms recently purchased a house. That's exciting. And we've been there with her through the whole process of what's been going on in her life. And she's very encouraged, and we've helped her to be able to go out on her own, and that's awesome. And we've helped others stay sober, I guess, to stay on there, to stay away from drugs and alcohol. We've been their support during those times of difficulty in their lives. Over the past few years, we've been reaching young people and helping them to come to put their faith in Christ and discover that God has created them with a purpose. And they're not only serving on Wednesday nights and going to the nursing home, they're serving Sunday mornings. And that's pretty cool to see these young people out here serving already. They've come to know it's not just the church in the future, they're the church now. And they need to know that they belong. And that's what I just love that about us. As I look out today, I see hearts and lives that love Jesus and each other. I also see several empty seats. Look around you. Are there people missing? Do you have space? Yeah. That means we have missing people that should be here. I need to be the first to take out and take some responsibility. I haven't been as getting the vision out there, reminding us of what our purpose is as a church, is to reach people for Jesus Christ, involving our community, getting out there. We built the addition, and I kind of probably sat back and relaxed and was enjoying it. And I dropped the ball, and I'm sorry. I should have kept working, because we can't forget what the most important thing is to reach people for Jesus Christ. The number of people in Zumbro Township hasn't changed. I mean, there's probably still 727 people. It was in 2017 that they took that census. If 30% of them are in church today, that leaves 484 that aren't. That's a lot of people. And then many of us in this room, we represent a bunch of different zip codes. So there's a lot of different townships represented. And according to the Pew Research study, only 30% of people in Minnesota are regular church attenders. So that means there's 60% that isn't. That means there are a lot of people around us that don't have a church, that don't have a church home, and a lot of those don't know Jesus Christ. It says the largest religious growing group in the state of Minnesota is the nones, N-O-N-E-S, people that have no church affiliation whatsoever. That's the largest group. That's the fastest growing group in the whole United States, but it also includes Minnesota. Some have never experienced being a part of a church, and others have got soured by bad experiences. Most just don't think it's important. That's hard. It's difficult to reach the lost when they don't even know what they're missing. So that's what we need. That's our job. And I want to get us back on track to reach our communities with a life-changing message of Jesus Christ, that he loves them, that he has a plan and a purpose for them. Now, we're here to help, that we can be a part of that. We're here not only to meet in church on Sunday, but to be the church in our communities every day of the week. God has his hand on South Troy. It hasn't always been like easy going, straight upward, it's been kind of goes back and forth, and sometimes you go forward 2 steps and you go back 3, and it feels like that sometimes. But that's when sometimes I wonder, is God, are you really leading us? Am I on the wrong track? Am I not paying attention? But in Gary's and my devotions over the last few weeks, we've been in the book of Exodus. And a lot of us know that that's when Moses took the people of Israel and he led them to the promised land. So that Exodus was they were exiting Egypt. What I found curious from chapter 13 was that it wasn't the most direct route. Please read with me from Exodus 13, beginning at verse 17. It'll be on page 55 of your Pew Bibles. It'll also be up on the screen. Well, we're going to start in verse 17 and go to the end of the chapter. It says, when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, though that was the shorter. For God said, if they face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by the desert road toward the Red Sea. The Israelites went up out of Egypt armed for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him because Joseph had made the sons of Israel swear an oath. He had said, God will surely come to your aid, and then you must carry my bones up with you from this place. After leaving Sukkoth, they camped at Etham on the edge of the desert. By day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so that they could travel by day or night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. I find that interesting. I know when I plan a trip, especially if I have to be somewhere at a certain time, I find the fastest way to get there, don't you? I go to my navigation app on my phone, stick it in there, and I follow the directions. Supposedly, it's going to take me there the quickest. But, when Gary and I are on vacation, you've heard about our vacations, we don't do that. I mean, we meander, where it takes our friends Mickey and Sharon, it used to take them 20 hours to get to Montana. It takes us 4 days or 5. I mean, we just meander, and that's okay. That's a vacation. But when you really want to get somewhere, you go straight through. You try the fastest way to get there. But God said he took them on a less direct. He did not take them the quickest way. These people have been waiting for 400 years to get out of Israel has been in Egypt for 400 years. They're finally getting going. So why didn't he take them the shortest way? It would have avoided 40 years in the wilderness. They wanted to get there. They were packed. They had Moses. They were set. Why take the less direct route? Now, God said if the people are faced with a battle, they might change their minds and turn around and go back. He knew his people. He knew they weren't ready to face an enemy. They were just newly brought together for this trip. They really weren't a close-knit group. They really weren't committed to getting there, no matter what. They were more in a partying mood. You know, let's party, we're gonna go, we're out on our way. I mean, the Egyptians sent them off. They gave them everything they needed. But, you know, God thought, you know, the first difficulty, they're gonna hightail it and go back to Egypt. They were living the familiar and they were facing change. How many of us like change? Some people are going, yes, most of us no. I'm married to a guy that hates change. So, I mean, if he could leave everything the same, our house would still look like it did when we got married 34 years ago or 33 years ago. And he's nodding his head, yes, it would. But that's the way he is. He hates change. But once he gets there, it's okay. I mean, he likes lots of the changes we made. So Moses had come along. God was on their side. The Egyptians were glad to see him go because of all the stuff that had been going on. So they were excited. They're on their way. Now, we did that with South Troy. We have made a lot of changes physically. We have done a lot of different things here. We put on the addition. We got everything done. We fixed up the place. We arrived. We got everything finished. We got everything just the way we like it. And we got everything done. And so, yeah, that's pretty cool. You know, God blessed us. People gave financially. We're solid. We landscaped and graveled and did a lot of stuff. We have a beautiful facility. God has blessed us in amazing ways. We have arrived. And then, we're all there. We do that stuff. And then tragedy hits a lot of times. Not to the church yet. Your crush drops you. Your job is not what you thought it would be. You meet a challenge that seems way too big. The people of Israel met a number of challenges along the way, and they wanted to give up. They never wanted to try it again. They wanted to go back to Egypt. Well, I would challenge you, our time of testing is here too. We have not had a huge influx of people since we put the addition on the church. It just hasn't happened. We don't have full pews this morning. What are we missing? Did we get too relaxed? Did we just get tired? And like I said, I fear that's where my guilt is. I got tired. I mean, it's a lot of work getting all that stuff done. And I, relaxed and just wasn't getting out there like I should be. I relaxed our vision to give us rest and enjoy what we had. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with celebrating and enjoying it. And that's true. God has done amazing things here. I fear, though, we've lost our vision to know, grow, and go with the love of Jesus. As we gather on Sunday mornings, we provide a place for people to go, to know Jesus. That's what we're here for. That's what Sunday morning is, the knowing. We want people to know God. So that's why our WOW team is so important. That's why having somebody in the parking lot smiling and showing people where to go. That's why having a greeter that tells it, oh, this is what's going on this morning. Here's where you can go. Here's, that's why you guys are the most important. You're more important than me. Because the first 10 minutes is when people decide if they're coming back again. You don't hear me for the first 10 minutes. So it's the people that are on that WOW team that make a huge impact on the people that come to church that very first time. And then as we gather together, we encourage people to grow, and that's what our small groups are for. That's why it's so important to grow, to get to know God, to know how God wants you to serve and to be a part of, how He has made you. Because He's designed each one of us with special gifts and talents. Next, we encourage, growth in our faith. The early church met daily, it says, to read Scripture and to learn to apply it to their lives. If you look at Acts 2, verses 44 to 47, it says, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe, and many wonders and miraculous signs were done by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. Selling their possessions and goods, they gave to one another as he had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with God in sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. God knew that was a tendency of human beings. If we hadn't been toughened up and learned to deal with the challenges in life, we often run back to the familiar instead of going forward. So God sent them the long way around to the promised land. He didn't want them to turn around and go back. He knew that if they came against an enemy too early in their journey, they would quit. How often do we do that in our faith? How tempting it is to do in the church. It's so much easier to do church just like we always did church. It's so easy to get into a rut. Our goal on Sunday morning is to be a place that is inviting, to be relevant, so good that you want to bring your unsaved friend to. We are called to go and make disciples. Beginning next Sunday, we'll begin a series to help us prepare for Easter. What on earth am I here for? Don't you wonder that sometimes? Why am I here? The idea comes from Rick Warren's book, The Purpose-Driven Life. It's a message for the church and for all people. It'll be a great series to invite someone that does have those kind of questions about God. It's a great opportunity to introduce somebody to the life-changing power of Jesus Christ. Our goal on Sunday morning, like I said, is to make a place so inviting, so relevant, so good that you want to bring a friend to. An unsaved friend, a neighbor, a family member. So who do you know that doesn't know Jesus? Who do you know that isn't regularly a part of a church family? That's the one that you can focus on. When we take that next step in our faith, we discover that God has a plan for each person, and God has a plan for South Troy too. We must take the next step as the church, His church. It's not about us. It's not about me. It's His church. He won't show the entire trail to us, just like the Israelites. He didn't tell them what was coming for the next 40 years. He just took them all the way around. He said, follow Moses, follow the cloud, follow the pillar. And that's what they did. Excuse me. He won't tell us if we're going to be going uphill or if we're going to be going downhill, if it's going to be easy or hard. He just says to follow. He will only show us the next step, and we are to take it in faith. A step of faith can be scary.
Only in the leap from the lion's head will he prove his worth. It's impossible. Nobody can jump this.
Indy! Indy, you must hurry! Come quickly!
It's a leap of faith. From my heart.
You must believe, boy. You must believe.
My heart goes in my throat every time I see that. I know what's going to turn out. I don't like heights that well. So Indiana Jones had to take a leap of faith. He had to trust that there was going to be something there. He couldn't see that rock pathway. He had to believe that that's where he had to go. Our lives often seem like we can't see the next bend in the road. We can't see the next step. When we've planned something, sometimes it goes wrong. Not everything turns out the way we want it to do. The old saying, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry, seems to happen quite often. Sometimes it seems to be the rule, not the exception. We can't plan for everything, and often we can only do the next thing and wait and see what happens. In November of 2018, we brought a group of people together to help come up with a strategic vision for South Troy. And you know, we hadn't looked at that in a while, and I thought it wouldn't hurt to bring that back up again. So so our strategic vision that we laid out in 2018 looks like this. We will see 100 people gather each week, worshiping God at 2 worship gatherings, and we will be more diversified because more people will bring more diversity. We'll also need to increase our worship band. As our worship team expands, it'll continue to strive to make our worship experience filled with the Holy Spirit and the excellence needed to draw hearts to worship together. As a result, our worship gatherings will be spirit-focused, exciting, and energetic. Second, we will see new people come to our church and meet Jesus. We will have the opportunities for outreach through our facility, being open to large events for our township and area. We will have large events to reach out and share the love of Christ through actions, words, and through worship. We will be open to share the truth and our compassion with the people in our area. Our baptisms will increase 10%, and we'll celebrate every single one. Our children's ministry will see 30-plus kids attend every week. We will continue to create fun, irresistible, gospel-centered environment that kids will love and learn in. We will have an inviting atmosphere for families to meet together. The nursery will be larger and more modern and more accommodating for little children to play, to rest, and to have space during worship where they can be themselves. Our youth will increase 10%. We will see our students bring their friends to church where they will learn about Jesus and follow him. Our youth will be visible in the community through youth outreach. Our youth will serve within the church. We will install strong small groups that will help people become strong disciples. We are called to help all of us to reach unity in faith and knowledge of the Son of God and become mature. Our life groups strive for each one to reach one. And we also desire to be financially healthy. One of our goals is to get our savings account healthy again. Last year, we spent a lot of it on the parking lot and the landscaping. And because of those, our expenditures, our savings account is pretty low right now. With our addition, we have a mortgage, but that is our only debt. Everything else, we're all paid up. We have made it a goal to establish a savings of $5,000 to have in the bank for emergencies that spring up through the normal summer slump that happens. As people miss during the summer, they miss worshiping with our offerings as well. So to help alleviate that, that's one of our goals, is to get our savings account back to where it should be. As we look at our goal, all these are good goals, nothing wrong with any of them. But it's also a good reminder that we haven't arrived yet, because our goal was to be there this spring. I believe that God still has a plan and that he will still guide us to meet those challenges before us. But we're on a scenic route right now. God's purpose for taking us on the scenic route is to teach us to glorify him. Trusting in the Lord requires seeing our weakness and need and trusting in his power and provision. Trusting in the Lord requires seeing our weakness and need and trusting his power. God brought Israel out of Egypt in a powerful way. I mean, there was 10 plagues. The people of Egypt wanted to get rid of the Israelites. They thought they were going to just be destroyed. They were pretty well destroyed. And they wanted them out of there. But we've got to learn to trust. We all must learn that we can't do it alone. Even as a church, we're weak and we need help to travel the right road. With all the miracles they experienced, you think that the people of Israel would have learned the lessons, wouldn't you? I mean, how hard can it be to follow God? He's already led us this far. I mean, but even the Red Sea's deliverance. It wasn't only 3 days after the Red Sea, they were grumbling and complaining about not having clean water. It only took 3 days. And we all think we would do so much better. But then we think about all the times that God provides for us, and then we start wondering, how are we going to make it? You know, we turn around and go back to the familiar. God takes his people on a scenic route because his purpose is to build a people that will bring him glory. But we don't trust him as we should until we see our weakness and his faithfulness. South Troy is God's church, it's not ours. We want it to be here another 100 years, 200 years, until Jesus comes back. He has brought us together to do his work in the Zumbro Valley community. We have come a long way, but we must trust that he still has work for us to do in and through us. We must trust that he has a plan even when it seems too big for us. You know what? When it seems too big for us, that's when he's going to show up. I mean, if we can do it ourselves, why would he need to come? And that's what he says. He says we need to trust him. We need to take that step. We need to take that leap of faith. Trusting in the Lord requires remembering that he always keeps his promises. We read at the end of the Exodus passage, Moses took the bones of Joseph with him. For he had made the sons of Israel solemnly swear, God will surely take care of you, and you will carry my bones from here with you. Think about it. How crazy would that be? Joseph died 400 years before. So there's this mummy, and they have him in a box. And so when it's time to go back to the promised land, they have to take him with. So they get this mummified body 400 years later, and they stick him on a wagon, and they're hauling him back to Israel. Can you see that? I mean, everybody else is getting their good stuff, and here they get a bag of bones. I mean, they're pulling this along and putting him with. And then every night, they load him back up. Every time they move camp 41 times. That's a lot of packing and repacking. And they pulled him around all over the place. Moses had to load and unload Joseph's bone. You can't trust someone who doesn't keep his word. Joseph said, God is going to deliver you. He's going to keep his promise, and I want to be back in the promised land. So keep my bones with you. God kept his word. He always keeps his word. You can trust that he'll do the next thing that he said he'll do. God is always with us, but he still has a lot for us here to do at the church. We are his church, and he told Peter, he says, the gates of hell will not prevail against my church. Now, it wasn't just South Troy, but it's the universal church. You know, when everything looks so bleak around us, we have to remember God is still with us. God has a plan. Even though we like putting timetables on things like our strategic vision, doesn't mean that God is done with us because we didn't make it. He doesn't say, you screwed up, forget it, we're done. It only means we got the date wrong, and we still have time to get where he wants us to go. See, when we trust in the Lord, he gets the glory and we get the blessings. The people of Israel took the next step. They followed Moses up to the Red Sea, then through the Red Sea. They followed Moses for 40 years in the wilderness, and not everything went the way it's supposed to. For one thing, they weren't supposed to take 40 years, but they did. But by the end of the 40 years, they got done, and when they got to the end, their clothes had not worn out. They had always had food, they'd always have water, and they had just grown and multiplied. So when they got to the promised land, they were ready to take it over. They learned that they could take the next step and let him lead. I want to share a story of persistence. I think I've shared it once before, but it's still pretty cool. There was a couple of men that had a vision that at first glance was ridiculed and set aside as impossible, but they didn't give up. In 1977, the president of Digital Equipment claimed there was no reason anyone would ever want a computer in their home. 1977. How many of you were around in 1977? All right, there's quite a few of us. And in those days, they said none of us would want a computer. How many of you have a computer in your home, including your phones? Or laptops. Those are computers. So the revolution was brought to us in a large part by Stephen Jobs, the founder of Apple Computers. Steve, is it Jobs or Jobs? Jobs, okay, was only 21 when he and Steve Wozniak invented the Apple computer. The two Steves managed to take that massive tubes. You remember how big those things were? If you were at John Marshall, it was a whole room with like 2 computers in it. It took up the whole thing. But now they found a way to make it small enough so it could sit on a desktop. And then the 2 Steves weren't interested in money. But first they offered their invention to Atari, who turned them down flat. They offered it to Hewlett-Packard. Hewlett-Packard knocked them back. It seems Jobs and Wozniak alone could see the possibility. So Jobs sold his Volkswagen, and Wozniak sold his calculator, and they got $1,300. And they formed Apple Computers. The company was named Apple in memory of a happy summer job that Jobs had spent working in an orchard. But that's not the end of the story. By all accounts, Steve Jobs is a visionary, and he spurred on this vision, and they were getting so excited, but they needed somebody that had management expertise, somebody that would really lead the company to the next level. So they approached John Scully, the president of PepsiCo. And there was no reason that Scully should leave Pepsi. Pepsi was a great company, it was growing. Why should he help these two nerds that were starting a computer company that nobody ever heard of? And he didn't want to. He turned down Jobs 3 times. Finally, Jobs went back to him again and again, and the question at the end was, do you want to spend the rest of your life selling sugar water, or do you want a chance to change the world? Indeed, Jobs and Scully did change the world. Jobs dared Scully to get out of the sugar water business and see what could be done in the computer business. And as we follow and trust God for the future of South Troy, we have to take a leap of faith. We must trust that God is leading us in the right direction, even when it seems to be the scenic route. Jesus comes to us with the same question. Do you want to spend the rest of your life selling sugar water? Going to work, accumulate more stuff, and perhaps finding some space for God and the world in our spare time? But Jesus had a vision to change the world. He has called South Troy into existence to change this part of this world. And that doesn't mean just Zumbro Township. God is doing great things here. But he also wants us to maybe he wants us to plant another church in the future, just like South Troy started. Austin helped us get started. Maybe we can help somebody else get started. Maybe in Elgin or Wabasha, because those, or Plainview or Lake City or Zumbrota. That's a possibility. We don't know what God has for us. God is doing great things here. We got to continue down the path he laid for us. As we continue to trust God and give him glory, we will benefit from his blessings. Our vision has got to be big. We have a God that loves us too much. He loves to answer big prayers. He loves to answer impossible prayers, because anything less is an insult. As we take the next step with God, we can trust that he knows what's best for us. He will take us on the best path for the journey he has planned for us. The challenge today, will we trust God to lead South Troy? Are we willing to obey him no matter what the cost? Question to ask ourselves, who can I reach out to this week and introduce to Jesus Christ? Who can I bring next Sunday? As we go to communion, I want to kind of keep that in our minds this morning. Communion is open for everybody. There is no qualifications, communion in the Wesleyan Church. Just that you love Jesus and that you want to follow him. So as we enter communion, I want you to be thinking of that one person. Maybe ask God during that quiet time to bring somebody to mind that you should be asking to church. And if you don't know anybody that doesn't go to church and is not a Christian, got to get out. Got to get out more. Find some friends that don't. I mean, it's one of the reasons I play ball on Monday mornings, because there's 100 people. They can't all know Jesus. So I hope that I can be an example. And I have a lot of people ask me questions. I have a lot of them guys. One day I caught a fly ball out in center field, and they said, one of the women that I play with said, yeah, he was wondering, he goes, is that really a pastor out there? Can they catch ball? Yeah, pastors can catch softballs too. Not just that I was a woman, but that I was a pastor. I think that was more of a surprise for him. So, I mean, I don't have a huge, but, two of those people that I play ball with serve in our food shelf. So they've got that far into the church. Actually, one comes periodically. So, that's what we do. You're trying to find ways, reach out and invite. So as we meet for worship, as our ushers come up, we will remember what Jesus said and how he invited us to have communion with him. Our God of grace and mercy, we thank you that you ever loved us and provided for our redemption, and we thank you for your Son who died for us, and for your Spirit who invites us to draw near this morning. Guide us now as we commemorate the suffering of our Lord. Help us to remember the cost of our salvation. Help us to commune with you and with each other. And so consecrate the bread and the juice which we are here prepared, that as we partake of them, we may receive the spiritual benefits of your broken body and your shed blood for us.